Welcome to Breaking the Cycle of Poverty, featuring Jay Height, Executive Director of Shepherd Community Center in Indianapolis. My name is Tim Swearens, and I'm your host for these conversations that explore why poverty remains such a persistent problem in the United States. On this episode, Jay will discuss Shepherd's nearly 40-year history, the many ways it continues to bless neighbors in Indianapolis, and the ministry's future in 2025 and beyond. Jay, Shepherd is preparing to celebrate a major milestone in 2025. Can you give us a summary of how the ministry started way back when?
Yeah, it was actually in October of 1990,
1985.
In 84, in October, a group of pastors at a staff meeting started talking and saying, we got to do something in the inner city for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And so at a Bob Evans, a lot of good things happen at Bob Evans, you know. And they determined they were going to do a Thanksgiving outreach. So that church from the west side of Indianapolis, West Side Church of the Nazarene, and their pastor at the time, J.K. Warwick, they came down at an old Nazarene church at State in Washington that Thanksgiving and did the first outreach. And then they worked with the Indianapolis First Church of the Nazarene to do a Christmas party. And then out of that in 1985, Shepherd was created in that vision. And so we're on the cusp of that 40-year anniversary. We just had the founder, Dean Coles, who was a staff member who came down and led these efforts and then ended up helping in the creation. It's a rich history, and it's a foundation of 40 years of God's faithfulness.
So we could talk for hours about how Shepherd has touched the lives of tens of thousands of our neighbors over the years. But when you think about the impact of Shepherd on our neighbors, what are a couple of stories that come to mind?
Well, I think of a tragic story recently, because at times tragedy happens, right? And a young girl that we had invested in and her brother, she was shot and killed in Beech Grove, 18 years old. 15-year-old brother was with her. And we were our hearts were heavy about that. But the second police officer on the scene was a Shepherd kid. And he said, I knew what to do because I was raised at Shepherd. And so this young officer who's doing amazing things and now's a dad of his own and does a lot of things to help at Shepherd, he was able to comfort a 15-year-old kid, he said, who was trying to act tough, but he was a little boy who needed help. And he said, I've learned it, and so I was able to live it.
Wow, that's fantastic. Shepherd has grown into a multifaceted ministry that serves hundreds of families by providing food and health care and assists with education and job training. What's been the key takeaways for growth in the ministry's work?
Sure, not my work, because I think I was telling someone today, we've been at this location 18 years, but at the old location, I had 3 sets of drawings of what I thought we were going to do. And then God said, are you done yet? And then, as he says in Exodus 3, and his mighty hand will move. And it did, and we ended up with this property. Well, I didn't want to come here. I came through, it's an old Masonic lodge. They had the poker room, and they had coffins in the store. I said, it's too far out of our neighborhood. What I didn't know, but obviously God did, is that our neighborhood and gentrification was pushing our neighbors. Mm-hmm. And so we are right where we needed to be. Again, not my plans. I had 3 failed attempts, reminders. And so it's a reminder to us that we are here to commit to relationships, and then God will bring the resources necessary. And we want to continuously depend on him and work very hard to tell the story of what's happening here on the Near East Side.
I'm just continually inspired by interacting with the Shepherd staff, just not only the work they're doing, but their maturity, spiritual maturity, and just who they are as people. What do you want our listeners to know about the Shepherd team?
One, we're blessed with great colleagues here. And folks, our job is not to solve problems. Our job is to serve Jesus.
Yes.
And in serving Jesus, he's responsible for taking care of it. And so we want to do that each and every day. And we have folks who just love Jesus and they love kids, and they show up at Arsenal Tech High School and talk to them and then say, okay, you're being a knucklehead, but Ben, I love you as a knucklehead, and I want to help you. You see these things that happen. I was watching the other day, one of our students was out on the playground and he had removed himself from everyone else, was sitting by the fence, and I could tell he was not in a good place. And then I watched one of our staff members come over and just sit down beside him and didn't say anything, but just sat there. And then pretty soon they started talking, and I feel like that's it. One of my favorite books, it's from the Imagination Library, the Dolly Parton. It's called The Rabbit Listened. And I highly recommend everyone read this book. It's a kid's book, but it tells the story of a little boy who was having a bad day, and all these animals came to him, told him all these different things. But one, the rabbit came and sat beside him and listened. And I think many times we think we have to solve, we have to do. And what our community and what I see evidenced by the tremendous staff and volunteers is that many times we come and listen.
You always say it's about relationships and not programs. That's hard, though, because it's hard enough to run a program, but to build deep relationships, that's hard work.
And it's messy work, and it means you cry a lot. It means you're heartbroken at times. But I think Jesus was too.
Yes.
And we have to run programs because in those, then we make the connection to create the relationships. And you see, Jesus did this all through his ministry. He spent very little time preaching at the temple. It was usually, I call it ministry on the go, at 3 miles an hour as he walked through.
Yes. Yes. What comes next for Shepherd? What's on the horizon?
We have a 2030 vision that if folks would want to reach out to us, we would be happy to share. This 2030 vision is to reach 4 times the number of kids we're currently serving while only doubling our budget. But what that does and what all of these initiatives roll up to is the fact that we want 750 families in the 2 zip codes we serve in deep relationships, in a paraclete relationship, and it's there we can change a neighborhood. It's there we can re-neighbor the hood.
If our listeners want to help with the 40th anniversary celebration, how can they get involved?
I would suggest they reach out to Colton Williford, Colton W. at shepherdcommunity.org, and see how they might want to get involved. It's exciting, and as we remember 40 years, our focus is on the next 40. And obviously, Tim, you and I won't be here in 40 years.
At least not for all 40.
Right, but the ministry can, and we want to continue to bring up those that next level of leaders.
Thank you, Jay. For nearly 40 years, Shepherd Community has made a lasting difference in the lives of thousands and thousands of neighbors. The Shepherd team couldn't do that work without the support of donors, partners, and volunteers. To learn more about how you can help, please visit shepherdcommunity.org. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.